What's good, y'all, and welcome to another episode of Off the Backboard. I am your host, Eloy Thomas, and today is going to be a part 2 of another video that I had just dropped on Tuesday, where I was basically just going through the beginning of every Western Conference team in the NBA. Link to that video is going to be in the bio. Today, we're going to be going through the Eastern Conference. Quick disclaimer, I'm recording this video on the 24th of November, 2023. So a lot of the standings, stats, rankings, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about is going to be changing, of course. Probably after I drop this video, a lot of the stuff will be different. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so up first, we have the 2-13, 15th seed Detroit Pistons, who, as I record this video, are currently on a 12-game losing streak. Just to kind of put you in a perspective how bad the Detroit Pistons have been this year as a team. The last time that they had an above 500 season was in 2016. The time before that was in 2008. So the last time that they had a comfortable roster that could make it to the playoffs and win a game, the Instagram was not even a thing yet. Instagram was not created the last time that this team was decent enough to win a playoff game, as well as Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett led the Boston Celtics to an NBA championship the last time that the Pistons were in the playoffs and won a game, which is kind of insane to think about. I mean, of course, you have Jalen Duren, who has been out with the ankle injury for the last few games. He's set to return tonight. We'll see how he plays with them. Cade Cunningham has been their only viable option on offense. Of course, Coach Monty Williams has a lot of time to figure this out, as they just inked him to a 6-year, $75 million contract this season. So with him and Cade being there for the foreseeable future, hopefully the Pistons can get some competent pieces around them to get them to be a winning team again. Up next, we have the 14th seed 2-12 Washington Wizards, who are the second worst team in the entire NBA, regardless of conference, behind only the Detroit Pistons, who have the worst losing record in the last 2 decades. On the back of their dynamic duo of Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Poole, who has a tremendous negative 14.7 plus minus, worst in NBA history, on top of a negative 22.7 net rating, and Kyle Kuzma, who just has a shitty haircut. Bravo! These niggas suck. They are awful. So bad to the point where they're having their home crowd chant the opposing team's name and their player getting pissed about it. You guys are bad. Bro, the EuroLeague, this was Denny Avdija, by the way, Avdija, however the hell you say it, by the way, who got upset because the Wizard fans were chanting Knicks. In EuroLeague, you guys are rooting for your country, bro. This is not the same. You guys suck. It's gonna happen. But besides that, Bilal Cool Burritos has looked good as a rookie, I guess. They suck. Get it together. Most unserious team in the NBA, by far. Up next, we have the 13th seed 5-11 Chicago Bulls. Only thing that I really have to say about this roster is that they need to blow it up right now. The Big Three experiment in Nikola Vucevic, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan has obviously been a failure. They have a ceiling that they've already reached in being a mid-level playoff team, and they are just bad to watch. Everybody here looks disinterested in being there besides Kobe White, who has been the only upside for them this season, having, an above-average season for them. Patrick Williams is on absolute crack if he wants a contract that starts with anything other than a 2 and ends with anything other than a 2. Single digit ends there. He has looked like a minimum contract player this season, putting up career lows in every aspect. Honestly, I'm not even 100% sure of that last statement, but just watching him this season, he has looked bad. Send Vucevic, send Caruso, send DeRozan, send LaVine, send all of them to a contender where they can really flourish, because this Chicago Bulls team is not it. Blow it up. Up next, we have the 12th seed 5-9 Charlotte Hornets, who, despite a rougher start to the season, still have a lot of bright spots to hang their hat on. You, of course, have their franchise player, LaMelo Ball, who started the season a little bit rough because of that injury that he was coming off of. But since then has looked great. In his last 5 games, been putting up 34 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. Of course, had that great game this last Wednesday against the Washington Wizards, where he put up 34 points, 13 assists, and 8 rebounds. You, of course, have Miles, 37 days, 37 nights in jail, Bridges, who had a great game for them this last Wednesday as well, putting up 33 points, 10 rebounds. Best game that he's had so far this season, coming back from that suspension. You also have Brandon Miller, who has looked great for them as a rookie so far, doing a little bit of everything that they're asking him to do, catch and shoot, creating his own shot. He's looked better than I thought that he would on defense. And you have a big part of their offense with Terry Rozier, who's been out on a groin injury.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
Is it just me, or is it weird? Like when you hear groin injury, is it just like a little bit weird to you? You're just like, oh, damn, bro, out with a dick and balls injury. Probably should cut that out. Anyways, they're a team that should probably put together a win streak once Terry Rozier comes back. Of course, you have LaMelo playing great, Brandon Miller playing great. You got Miles Bridges playing great. Once they bring that scoring punch back, I don't know if they'll be play-in contention. They've been in the play in the past couple of years that LaMelo's been healthy. But just with how talented the Eastern Conference is, you never know. They might make a push, they might not. Up next, we have the 6-8, 11 seed Brooklyn Nets, who just so far have by far been one of the most mid teams to watch across the association this far. And in my opinion, that's just because of lack of top-end talent. I know that they have guys out there like Mikal Bridges and Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas, who of course has been an absolute bucket for them so far, averaging just under 27 points a game. But other than that, it just kind of concerns me just because neither of those guys are guys that I would trust in building around in terms of a full-term rebuild in Cam Thomas and Mikal Bridges. And that they don't own their own first-round pick until 2028 just because of the saga of superstar trades that they made with Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden. They've had a crazy array of players on their team in the last decade. But other than that, I really hope that they can turn it around just because I am a big fan of Mikal Bridges and Cam Thomas. This team really does have a bright future with the young talent that they have if they can get a superstar player alongside them. And other than that, I'm really hoping for the best for the Brooklyn Nets. Up next, we have the 7-8, 10 seed Toronto Raptors, who for them so far the biggest concern has just been putting the ball in the basket, as they are currently one of the worst offensive teams in the league with a bottom 5 offensive rating. But you do have the bright spot out there in Scotty Barnes, who has been great for them so far, currently leading the team in rebounds, steals, and blocks, and second in the team in current point per game and assists per game. So just really stepping up into that cornerstone role for them after he had that rough sophomore year. You also have Dennis Schroeder, new acquisition for the team, who has just been looking great for them so far. And Pascal Siakam, of course, who had a really rough start to the season, but has been really starting to pick it up in his past few games. A guy for me that I would really be conflicted about trading if I was the Toronto Raptors, just based off the fact that you don't own your own first-round pick for this next year, and you don't get it back until 2025. So you could keep them, let them ball out, get some wins on the season, develop a winning mentality on the season, or you could trade them away, get some good building pieces to put around Scotty. They really are in a tough position, but shout out to my boy Scotty out in Toronto. He's been hooping for real. Up next, we have the 7-7, 9th seed Atlanta Hawks, who have looked decent this season, just barely sitting at 500. They have that really solid backcourt in DeJounte Murray and Trae Young. Trae Young, of course, has been struggling finding a good barber and shooting the 3 this season. Shooting in the low 30% since last season. He was in the low 30% as well. A guy that they're really hoping can get back to that more like 38%, closer to 40% range, just because he had that season where he was shooting close to 40% on 10 attempts. They looked great in that season. Other than that, I think that this is a team that should really be looking to buy. I think that DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella should be both on the trade market, just because I don't feel like DeAndre Hunter is a real third for them. Clint Capella just doesn't really fit the timeline, and they would look a lot more dangerous with a center that could kind of stretch the floor for them a little bit more, so that when DeJounte and Trae are trying to get into the paint, it's not all clogged up because you got Clint or Onyeka down there. Speaking of Onyeka, I really just don't think that he's the center of the future for this team. Maybe could be a really solid backup big. That's basically what he's been doing since he hasn't been able to take the starting position from Clint Capella yet. You have Jalen Johnson, of course, who has been looking amazing for them. Definitely solidifying himself as the forward of the future over there. But yeah, the Hawks should definitely be buying their team with a really solid backcourt. Move DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella. Up next, we have the 8-7 8 seed Cleveland Cavaliers, who are just a really hard team to talk about so far just because they've been so inconsistent in terms of health. They, of course, have been missing a lot of big pieces and guys like Jared Allen, Darius Garland, of course, Donovan Mitchell. They haven't seen their full starting lineup play a game together this season so far, yet they're still at the 8th seed, just barely above 500. So I feel like when this team is at full strength, they'll be able to make a really good push into the playoffs. But once it gets to the playoffs, it's a different story. I'm just not a big believer in the Twin Towers look. It obviously has been really dominant defensively in the regular season. They've shown that. But in the playoffs, they just got embarrassed by the Knicks, sent home by a team that younger than them. Well, not younger than them. They were obviously the younger team, but they were the more talented team. And I feel like they definitely should have won that series, but just Jared Allen and Evan Mobley clogging up the paint. Evan Mobley's not, stretching the floor like people thought he was going to, so it's just been a little bit harder for them. So, in my opinion, maybe not this year, but I feel like Jared Allen is a guy that definitely should be on the move. Evan Mobley is the more talented guy that I feel like you could slide over to the 5 and not have a problem with it. And Jared Allen is right now still really young, has a lot of trade potential. I feel like a lot of teams would be interested in Jared Allen. Other than that, this Cleveland Cavaliers team should definitely be a very successful regular season team. Just like I said, I don't know if that success can translate into the playoffs with their current look that they have on their roster. Up next, we have the 7 seed 8-6 Indiana Pacers, who just by far have been one of the most exciting teams to watch in the NBA this season, if not the most exciting. Currently leading the league in points at 128.3 points per game, which is on pace to break an NBA record. That would be the most points per game averaged by any team in the history of the NBA. They're also leading the league in assists per game and in field goal percentage, while leading the league in scoring at 50.7% as a team. They're also third in the league in three-point percentage at 39.2%, and while leading the league in assists, are bottom 5 in turnovers per game. So this offense has just been lethal to watch. I wasn't around during the 7 seconds or less Suns era. Of course, I was probably like 12, but just watching the highlights from that team, because that's really all I've been able to watch is highlights, compared to this team, it just looks extremely similar. It's just crazy how history repeats itself. And of course, you got all of this being led by their engine of an offense in Tyrese Haliburton, who so far this season is averaging about 25.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 12 assists, while only averaging 2.5 turnovers per game. So just really showing that he's an elite point guard in this league and can really handle being the main key to an offense. And he's doing all of this on insanely efficient offensive splits, shooting 49% from the field, 50% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line in his last 5 games. And for the season, he's putting up 50% from the field goal, 45% from 3, and 92% from the line. So just doing all of this on extremely efficient splits with their leader in Tyrese Haliburton. The one big thing for this team, though, is the defense. They're currently bottom 5 in defensive rating across the entire league. So once they find that defensive identity, then this team is going to be a real force in the East for a long time to come. Up next, we have the 8-6 6 seed New York Knicks, who so far have one bright spot for them, of course, has been Mitchell Robinson, who is leading the league in offensive rebounds at 6.1 a game. Obviously, just been a black hole for them in the paint, creating 6 extra possessions for them, and that has been huge. You have Julius Randle, who, of course, over the last 5 games has kind of tamed his dumpster fire of a game a little bit. I'm not trying to hate on Julius Randle. Sometimes he's just a hard watch with the shots that he takes. In the last 5 games, he has been a little bit better, though, averaging about 24 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 45% from the field, 31% from 3. The 3-point shooting is a little bit up from the start of the season, still not where you would like it, but that just has a lot to do with this shot selection. He takes a lot of unwarranted 3-pointers when he really doesn't need to, really difficult shots. When you got a guy like like Jalen Brunson, who has of course been really consistent for them so far in the season, averaging about 24 points, 5 assists. When you have a real point guard like him, you shouldn't really feel the need to take as much as difficult shots as Julius Randle does. But of course, the Knicks so far, even through all of that, has been solid. They've been missing RJ Barrett on a day-to-day basis just because of a migraine issue. Anyone that suffers from migraines knows that they are nothing to joke about. So I'm hoping that RJ can, with all of the medical advances that they have in the NBA now, get something figured out with that very soon, because he is a really intricate part to this Knicks team. All things considered, the New York Knicks have had a really decent start to the NBA season. Again, praise up for RJ. Migraines fucking suck. And let's get right into the next team. Up next, we have the 10-5 fifth seeds Philadelphia 76ers, who the main takeaway for me so far has just been the coaching prowess of Nick Nurse. Big thing coming into the offseason was that James Harden quote where basically he said that Nick Nurse was holding him back in that offense. From my perspective, it's been the complete opposite so far. So far, the Philadelphia 76ers are no longer a team that relies too heavily on isolation ball. They're down 50% this year from last season compared to their isolation stats. And that has a lot to do with Tyrese Maxey, who has really just taken the role as the point guard of this team and has made this offense more eccentric. In the terms of that, they're doing a lot more handoffs and things like that rather than just spamming pick and rolls with James Harden. And as well as that, you also have this Joel Embiid, who has looked like a definite MVP contender through the first 14 games of this year, or 15 for them. He's looked even better than he did last year in his MVP campaign, and is really just showing that, again, I feel like it was James Harden stagnating that offense. Of course, the offense has looked great. The defense hasn't looked too bad either, having a top 10 defensive rating in all of the league. The real question for me with this team is if they're a real contender, right? Because you have a really solid squad around Joel Embiid, but with the Eastern Conference being as talented as it is, it's just, in my eyes, it's really hard for me to imagine a team being led off the backs of Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, even though the offense has looked better than it did with James Harden, to really be a true contender that can knock out the Milwaukee Bucks or the Boston Celtics in a 7-game series. But I still want to give them their flowers, their props. They've bounced back really well from this James Harden trade, and I hope nothing but the best for Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. Up next, we have the 10-5 4th seed Orlando Magic. And just a quick premise, there are currently 4 teams as I record this video that are tied at a 10-5 record. So literally one win, one loss can move them drastically in these seedings. So, but as of right now, the Orlando Magic are sitting at the 4th seed. Main player I want to talk about has been Paolo Banchero, who I want to give his flowers just because they've looked so great to start the season. And of course, he's been tremendous shooting the ball this season at 45.5% from 3 on 3 attempts. So that's just a part of a game that we're watching evolve right in front of our eyes. It's just been great to see. But other than that, he's just a player that I thought was going to take a bigger jump this season. So far, averaging 19.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. He's just, the way that I see him playing, he's just a really big guard. 6'10", has a really built out frame to where he can bully down there. I just feel like he needs to use his size more effectively, and that's when he can get up more to that 25 to even 28 point per game range. I see Paolo Banchero becoming in this league someday. Other than that, the offense has been hit or miss. They have stretches where it looks okay, other stretches where it looks really stagnant, just because I don't feel like they have a true point guard out there. Paolo has been their primary ball handler so far, and it's looked good, of course, with them staying at 10-5, but they could really use a real point guard presence. The defense has been amazing, top 3 defense in all of basketball. They have guys like Jalen Suggs who are really just stepping into kind of that pit bull role where they're just going to guard the other team's best player, give a lot of hustle, give a lot of grit. I'm loving Jalen Suggs in that role. If I was them, last night on this team, I would really just be hounding the Bulls for a trade for Zach LaVine if they can somehow get him over there. I don't think that he would quite solve their problems as like a primary playmaker, but if they had that extra scoring punch, I can see them being really dangerous in this Eastern Conference, even with them being as young as they are. That's about it. Hound the Bulls for Zach LaVine, and let's get right into this next team. Up next, we have the 10-5 third seed Miami Heat, who have looked good so far this season despite missing their main scorer in Tyler Hero with that injury. You have Bam Adebayo, who's looked great for them so far as a first option on offense. I don't know if you would say he's the first option, but he's definitely been looking more aggressive out there, averaging 22.5 points, which is the career high for him so far, while still keeping that same defensive prowess. That's going to be extremely important for the Miami Heat going forward, is just making sure that they have that guy to lean on in Bam Adebayo in terms of regular season scoring, because we know that Jimmy Butler is a guy that's not going to really turn it on until they get to the playoffs. You have Jaime Jaquez Jr., who's looked really good for them as a rookie, really fitting into that Heat system really well. Of course, with Zach LaVine being available in trade talks, they're going to be, in the rumors with wanting to pick up him in some sort of trade. But I have zero confidence in the Miami Heat to pull off a trade for a superstar player. If someone told me that I had to bet money right now on the Detroit Pistons having an above 500 record this season, or the Miami Heat pulling off a trade for a superstar player, I am slamming the button for the Detroit Pistons to go over 500. Zero confidence. Their biggest acquisition in the past few years has, of course, been Kyle Lowry. But then you have guys like Kevin Durant and Damian Lillard, who had these guys as their primary destination to get there, and just didn't happen. Of course, they've been a really solid team in the playoffs the past couple of years, going to the finals against the Denver Nuggets this last year. But they're not a team that I see really being in contention again. Heat fans might slam me for that, saying, I need to give them the benefit of the doubt just because they've done so well these past couple of seasons. But I just can't bring myself to do it, man. But shout out Bam Adebayo. Up next, we have the 10-5 second seed Milwaukee Bucks, who, despite a slower start to their season, have really ramped it up and has been looking a lot better as of late. A lot of that on the back of their two main guys out there in Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Damian Lillard, of course, went to head coach Adrian Griffin, told him that he needed to switch up the rotations a little bit to something that he was more comfortable with. He's looked a lot better since that rotation change. Giannis, of course, has been looking amazing in his last 5 games, averaging 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists. So really catching his stride, getting back in that MVP form. But one big thing about this team that's going to really hurt them is the lack of perimeter defense. I know that they've been trying to use Giannis a little bit more in those perimeter defense situations, having them guard their team's best player, but he's more effective as a help defender. Of course, the best help defender in the league. That's a big reason why he won his Defensive Player of the Years. But when your two best perimeter defenders on your team are Malik Beasley and Jay Crowder, it's going to be really tough to compete when you have to go against the Celtics, who have guys like Jason Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis and Jaylen Brown, all those guys who can get it on their own on the perimeter. So that's just one big thing for this team. I don't think that there's any way for them to make any moves, but hopefully with the coaching of Adrian Griffin, they can figure out some way to kind of, I know that there's not a way to really hide the lack of perimeter defense, but maybe switch the rotations or something a little bit just to maybe nullify it a little bit. I don't know, but that is going to be the biggest concern for this team going into the playoffs. Up next, we have the first seed 12-3 Boston Celtics, who have just been showing that they are by far the most dominant team out in the Eastern Conference and are the team to beat out there. Big part of the reason why I'm saying that is that absolute masterclass that they put up against Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Bucks a few nights ago, where they held Giannis to just 21 points on 7 for 20 shooting, after he had just come off of 2 consecutive 40 pieces against 2 other teams, where he was extremely efficient, extremely dominant in both of those, and really just put a lock on that. Big part of that has been Kristaps Porzingis, who of course has been giving them, a new look to their offense and defense with the way that he can stretch the floor, rebound, shot block. He's just been looking scary for them. You have Drew Holiday, who of course the past couple of games has been looking a little bit rough for them, but has just been looking like a perfect piece of the puzzle out there in Boston. Give them A+ offseason acquisitions in both Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, just because they've been so extremely impactful for them since tip-off of day one. And last but not least, you also have Jason Tatum, who has just been fantastic for the Boston Celtics so far. He's currently on the season putting up about 28 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. Well, this stat right here kind of had me shook just because of the long line of legends that the Boston Celtics have had throughout their franchise history. Of course, being one of the most esteemed franchises of all time. He has the best plus minus of any Celtics player through 15 games since they started recording the stat in 1996-1997, with a plus 168 through these first 15 games, which just really goes to show you how dominant he and the Boston Celtics really have been this season. I feel like they're, of course, a true contender out there out east. Really have a really good chance to take it all home, and I personally would love to see that just because I am a huge Jason Tatum guy. He's been amazing this season. Kristaps is one of my guys as well. I really hope that they can keep the winning up and make a big push into the Eastern Conference. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. Of course, if you enjoyed yourself, leave a like, subscribe, comment if you think there's a team out east that can dethrone the Boston Celtics from this one seed, and then 2, if you can see any team out east eliminating them from the playoffs. Me personally, I think that this is their conference to lose as far as the finals. I'm not sure. Other than that, this was a part 2 to a video that I had just dropped on Tuesday. A link to that video will be in the description. I just made a TikTok, been dropping a couple of videos on there here and there, so follow me on TikTok at Off the Backboard. I'm about to get out of here, y'all. Thank you so much for watching again. Peace.